Hi everyone, good evening. Hi everyone, good evening. Welcome to Professor Academy's UGC Net Sociology YouTube live sessions. As you know, Professor Academy is now providing a few classes as an introduction to our actual course in YouTube platform as live classes so that all of you get all of you can get an insight into our actual course. So in today's class, we we are going to study or we are going to look at our unit 3, which is basic concepts and institutions. So this unit is divided into four parts, and the first part is sociological concepts, and we are also starting our class with this part. And this sociological concepts part include all these concepts which I listed here, like social structure, community, culture, diaspora, network, values, norms and roles, status and role, identity, habitus, agency, bureaucracy, power, and authority. And as you know, all these sociological concepts have a basic definition. And in addition to that basic definition, all these have other definitions given by thinkers. Like each of these concept has various definitions given by various thinkers. So, for example, if we take social structure, it has numerous definitions given by numerous thinkers. So, it is not possible for us to, study each of that definition and remember each of that thinkers and who gave which definition. So, it's not possible to study and it is not possible to remember all of those definitions and all. So, I would say it is better for you to evaluate some of the previous year questions and identify what are the major uh, definitions or what are the major parts from which you can expect questions or which are the repeatedly asking points in this unit. So I would say it is better for you to study that points first. So today also we are going to do the same. I went through some of the previous year questions, actually several of the previous year question papers, and I have noted down some of the repeatedly asking topics in this chapter. So first we are going to focus on that parts of this unit, and later if we have time we'll also look at all of the other definitions also, but for now let's focus on this chapter from an exam point of view. That would be better for us. So in today's class I have included definitions and points or concepts only from an exam point of view or topics which are repeatedly asked in the previous examinations. Is it clear? And also, as this chapter have a lot of this unit have a lot of concepts and institutions and definitions, it would actually take, I think it would take at least 4 classes for me to complete this unit so that we can at least cover some of its definitions and all. So I'm planning to take it in 4 parts, and this is the part 1 of basic concepts and institutions. So now, first, let's start our class with society itself. So, what is the basic or the common definition of a society? A society is defined as a group of people who live in a definable community and share the same cultural components. So, what is basically a society? It is basically a group of people, but we cannot call any group of people as a society. It has some particular features. A group of people can only be considered as a society when they live in a definable community and they should share the same cultural components. Is it clear? A group of people who live in a definable community and they should share the same cultural components. Then only we can call a group of people as a society. And a society consists of the people and institutions around us, our shared beliefs, and our cultural ideas. So, what are the components of a society? A society is a collection of people, institutions, shared beliefs, and cultural ideas. So, society is a collection of all of these factors. Not only people constitute a society, but along with people, all the institutions around us, beliefs existing in the society, or the cultural ideas or cultures in a society, all these factors together constitute a society. And many societies also share a political authority also. So that is also a feature of a society. Many societies also share a political authority. Then, sociologists generally classify societies along a spectrum of their level of industrialization. So, along a level of industrialization, sociologists usually classify societies, or that is the common way of classifying societies. If you observe in sociology, that is the most used way or common way of classifying societies along a spectrum of their level of industrialization. And on the basis of this level of industrialization, sociologists usually classify societies as pre-industrial societies, industrial societies, and post-industrial societies. So, what is pre-industrial societies? Pre means before. So, pre-industrial means before industrialization. So, societies before industrialization. So, what is the basic nature of pre-industrial societies? Pre-industrial societies were small, rural, and dependent largely on local resources. They were small, they were rural, and they were largely dependent on local resources. There were only a few specialized occupations. Occupations were less specialized, which means that most of the people were dependent on same kind of jobs. There were only a few types of jobs. Most of the people were dependent on either agriculture or cattle rearing or anything like that. So specializations in occupations were very much less. Then first occupation was that of hunter-gatherer. So based in this pre-industrial society, the first kind was hunter-gatherer societies. So this hunter-gatherer societies were relied on their surroundings for survival. They hunted wild animals and they foraged for uncultivated plants for food. So that was their way of living, or that was their livelihood. They hunted wild animals and they foraged for uncultivated plants. There were no, you have to, note that word. The plants were not cultivated, or there were no agriculture, but they were uncultivated plants, or we can say wild plants. That plants were not grown by the people, but that were plants which are available in the forest. They were uncultivated plants. So the people in a hunter-gatherer society, they hunted on wild animals and they collected uncultivated plants for food. And this kind of societies, hunter-gatherer societies, were of nomadic in nature. Nomadic means they never settle down anywhere. They keep moving from one place to another, which means their settlements were temporary. So hunter-gatherers societies were nomadic in nature because when resources became scarce, they moved to new area to find sustenance. For example, they reach one place, they hunt the animals in that particular place, and they collect all the plants at that place. And when when that place became short of animals and plants, these people would move to the next place, and there they carry on their hunting and collect plants and all. And when that place becomes short of animals and plants, they will move on to the next place. So they were nomadic in nature. And today, only a few hunter-gatherer groups remain in existence. We can only spot a few hunter-gatherer groups in existence, like indigenous Australian tribe and Bambuti tribe. They were the hunter-gatherers in Democratic Republic of Congo. Now, next type of society is pastoral society. This pastoral society relies on the domestication of animals as a resource for survival. So this people, what is the way of their livelihood? So pastoral people of pastoral society domesticate animals, or they, like we can say, cattle rearing. They domesticate animals as a resource for survival. And they were able to breed livestock for food, clothing, and transportation, and they created a surplus of goods. So we have to note that pastoral societies were able to create a surplus of goods. But in the case of the before, like in the case of hunter-gatherer society, there was no concept of collecting and saving food for future, or there was there wasn't a concept of surplus products. But when it comes to pastoral society, they were able to create a surplus of goods, or they were able to save some of their products for future purposes. And these people were able to breed livestock for food, clothing, and transportation. But they were also, their societies were also nomadic in nature, because they are forced to follow their animals to fresh feeding ground. Since their livelihood is dependent on animals or livestock, they have to, or they need to move from one place to another to feed their animals. So they were also nomadic in nature. Next type of society is horticultural society. So it is based on the newly developed capacity for people to grow and cultivate plants. So this society is based on the capacity for people to grow and cultivate plants. So at, during the development of this type of society, people became familiar with the techniques of cultivating or growing plants. So this horticultural society is based on cultivation, or cultivation of plants. And this societies, horticultural societies, developed around the same time of pastoral societies. And uh, this horticultural societies were the first of its kind to able to start permanent settlements. They were able to start a permanent settlements, because they had to, or they should settle somewhere permanently in order to do cultivation, isn't it? So in order to do cultivation, they should settle down somewhere. If they keep moving from one place to another, it is not possible for them to cultivate and collect their crops from that plant. So in order to do cultivation, they should settle somewhere permanently. So permanent settlements are a feature of this horticultural societies. And this permanent settlements gave these societies more stability, more material goods, and a basis for the first revolution in human survival. Is it clear? Because of this permanent settlement, horticultural societies became more stable, and they got more material goods. And this permanent settlement was the basis for the first revolution in human survival. Now, next type of society is agricultural society. So this the major difference between horticultural society and agricultural society is that in horticultural societies, there were no permanent tools or anything. Most of the tools were temporarily made tools. There was no well developed tools. But in case of agricultural societies, they relied on permanent tools for survival. They developed uh, permanent tools, and they used these tools for their cultivation or their other processes. So agricultural societies mainly relied on, or were dependent on, permanent tools for their survival. And they have also started to practice rotation of crops. They started to cultivate uh, different crops. After cultivating one crop for a period, they would cultivate another kind of crop later. Then they started to reuse waste products, like reuse the manure as fertilizer. So all these techniques, like the technique of using new kind of tools, rotation of crops, and the reuse of waste products as fertilizers, so all these techniques led to better harvest and bigger surpluses of food. Because of these techniques, they got better harvest, and it eventually led to the bigger surpluses of food. They became able to save more amount of food, or they got more surplus of food. And as we said earlier, they got new metal tools, or they developed new metal tools for digging and harvesting. So this made them more effective and long lasting. Since the new tools were made of metals, they were more effective and long lasting, unlike the tools they used in horticultural societies. Those were very much temporary tools made of sticks or like stones or something like that. But here in agricultural societies, the tools were made of metal, so they were more effective and long lasting. Then another important feature of agricultural society is that because of this increased surpluses of food and better harvest and increased materials, availability of materials, this human settlements, they started to settle permanently, and this human settlement started to grow into towns and cities. And the among these towns and cities, the bountiful regions became centers of trade and commerce. Is it clear? So that is agricultural society, how it gave way to the development of centers of trade and commerce, or center or development of towns and cities. Now, this in this agricultural society, people got more time. People got free time, started to get free time. Since they were using stone tools, their job became more easy. They were able to complete their job in less time. So they started to get more free time. So during that free times, people started to engage in more contemplative and thoughtful activities. Like they started to um, engage in music, poetry, philosophy, etc. So, because of this development of leisure and humanities, this societies or this period of time is known as dawn of civilization, because of the development of leisure and humanities. Is it clear? So, this particular period or stage is called as dawn of civilization. Dawn literally means like earlier time of a day. So in this place, dawn means starting of a civilization. So this particular stage is known as dawn of civilization. Then in an agricultural society, resources were plentiful resources, and this plentiful resources led to a division of social classes. Is it clear? So people having uh, more people having more resources became higher class in a society, and people who have had an only uh, lesser access to resources became a lower class in the society. Is it clear? People had more access to resources became higher class in society, and people only had a few access to resources became lower classes in society. So this plentiful resources led to division of social classes, and here people with more resources developed into a class of nobility. And this kind of division of social classes, or this plentiful resources, also started to create a difference in social standing, or social position between men and women. So this difference also increased the difference between the social standing of men and women in the society also. So this in this agricultural society, because of the increased availability of resources, it led to division of social classes, and it eventually led to an inequality in the society. Now, another type of society is feudal society. So the 9th century gave rise to feudal societies, and this one of the major feature of this feudal society is that strict hierarchical power based around land ownership and protection. So the power was based on land ownership and protection, and the power was strictly hierarchical in nature. And the power was handed down through family lines, which means from one person, the power was handed down to another person in the next generation. The power never handed over to any other person in the other social class or another family, but it was always handed down from the family, within the family, from one generation to the next generation. So so in case of peasant families, they never got a chance to exercise power, or they never got any kind of power or authority. And because of their powerlessness, the peasant families had to serve feudal lords for generations and generations. So it simply means that um, elite families remained elite or higher class for a longer period, and the peasant families always remained peasant, and they had to serve the feudal lords for generations and generations. And ultimately, the social and economic system of feudalism also failed due to the various changes happening in the society or social changes. The social and economic system of feudalism also failed, and it was eventually replaced by capitalism and the technological advances of industrial era. Feudalism was eventually replaced by capitalism and the technological advances of industrial era. Now, next stage of society was industrial society. So in the 18th century Europe, the 18th century European society witnessed a dramatic rise in technological innovation or invention. Lots of new discoveries happened during this period, and this change or this dramatic rise in technology that led to industrial revolution. Like we know the invention of steam machine and all. So that kind of inventions are the factor which led to industrial revolution. And due to this industrial revolution or new innovations in technology, it increased productivity and technology, and it led to the rise of urban centers or the places which had factories or the centers of production eventually developed into urban centers, and workers flocked to factories for jobs. During this industrial revolution, we know that people all over from different villages and all flocked to the urban centers or factories for jobs, and this caused the diversification of cities. We know that cities developed around factories, and since people from various parts of the world came to those cities seeking job, those cities or those places became diversified. People belonging to different places, different races, people speaking different languages came to one place for doing job. So this led to the diversification of cities. And during this stage of society, people were more focused on acquiring wealth and achieving upward mobility. People were more lean towards acquiring wealth and achieving upward mobility in society. So during this time, or the 18th and 19th centuries of industrial revolution, that it is the time in which during the development of sociology or the development of sociology as a discipline happened during this period of industrial revolution, the 18th and 19th centuries. We already studied about that, how did sociology develop as a discipline, or what was the origin of sociology as a discipline. It was mainly because of a result or as a response to studying the changes happening in the society as a result of industrial revolution. So that was the time in which the sociology started to emerge as a discipline. And at this time, power moved from the hands of aristocracy and old money to business savvy newcomers. So during the period of industrialization, until then the power was, power were in the hands of aristocracy or old money. But during the period of industrialization, power was transferred into the hands of business savvy newcomers or industrialists. And at this time also, because of the bad working conditions or the increased time of working hours and all, there was huge exploitation of workers during industrialization period, and the concerns over this exploitation of workers eventually led to the formation of labor unions and laws. That was the starting point of development of or formation of labor unions and laws. The concerns over the exploitation of workers led to the formation of labor unions and laws. And although the introduction of new technology at the end of 19th century entered the industrial age, much of our social structure and social ideas like family, childhood, time standardization, etc. So most of these social structure and social ideas have a basis in industrial society. So by the end of the 19th century, at that time, there were so many new kind of technologies were introduced, and that kind of changes brought an end to the industrial age. But still, most of our social structures and social ideas like we follow still till now have a basis in industrial society. Is it clear? So industrial society is a very important stage in the history of development of our society. So the next stage of society is post-industrial society. So these are also known as information societies or digital societies, and these are a recent development or a new development. So these post-industrial societies are societies based on the production of information and services. This post-industrial societies are not based on production of goods, but it is based on the production of information and services. And like we know, steam engine, the invention of steam engine was the major part or the starting point of industrial societies or industrialization. So like that, if we take information societies, we can say digital technology is the starting point or the factor which boosted the development of post-industrial society. Like steam engine for industrialization, digital technology is for information societies. And the economy of information societies are driven by knowledge. It is not driven by or not dependent or influenced by material goods, but the economy of information societies are driven by knowledge. And the power in a post-industrial society lies with those on charge of storing and distributing information. So the power in a post-industrial society lies within the hands of those who has charge of storing and distributing information. Is it clear? So these are the stages in which most of the sociologists define the development of societies through pre-industrial societies, industrial societies, and post-industrial societies. Now, Robert Redfield's concept of folk-urban continuum. This is a area which we can see repeatedly asking questions in the UGC NET examination. So Robert Redfield's concept of folk-urban continuum. So in the book The Folk Culture of Yucatan, which got published in 1941, that Robert Redfield explained his comparative study of the four communities. What are the four communities? He made a comparative study of city society, town society, peasant society, and folk and simple society. So he made a comparative study of these four communities in his book, The Folk Culture of Yucatan. And in order to do this comparative study, he selected four societies which representing these four communities from the Mexican province of Yucatan. So he selected four societies from the Mexican province of Yucatan, and representing city society, he selected Merida. Representing town society, he selected Distas. And representing a peasant village, he selected Chancom. And representing a village of folk society, he selected Tuski. Then, after analyzing these communities or societies, he placed the folk society and the city society at the both end of the poles. Or if we take a scale, he placed folk society at the one end of that scale and city society at the next end of that scale, like as it is shown in this diagram or this picture. So city society in this end, and next to city society there is town, and after that there is peasant society, and then last there is folk or simple society. And After doing his analysis and study, he concluded that city society resembled more with the town society and peasant society resembled more to the folk society, as we can see in this diagram. The city society and town societies had more resemblance, and peasant societies and folk societies had more resemblance, or they were similar. City and town societies were more similar, and peasant and folk societies were similar to each other. So he termed Marida and Distas as urban community and the Chankom and Tuski as folk community. Here it is mentioned in this diagram also. He mentioned the city and town societies as urban community and the peasant and folk societies as folk community. So this is his folk urban continuum. City, town, peasant and folk societies. And the city and town societies together constitute the urban community, and the peasant and folk societies together constitute folk community. Is it clear? Now, in addition to that, he also mentioned about some of the traits or characteristic features of these societies. So Redfield also proposed some of the characteristics of these societies. So folk and urban societies are placed on the opposite poles and are very different. As we said earlier, on the end of the one end of the scale, there is folk society, and on the other end, there is urban societies, and they are very much different. And the folk societies followed a moral order. But the urban societies were more based on mutual usefulness, deliberate coercion, and necessity and expectancy. So that was the major difference he found among folk societies and urban societies. Folk societies were more based on a, or they followed a moral order, but at the same time, urban societies were more based on mutual usefulness, deliberate coercion, and necessity and expectancy. And he also observed that when folk society come in contact with urban society, sometimes these folk societies come in contact with urban societies. So at that time of, during that times, this is, they inherit, or folk societies inherit traits of urban society, and thereby they lose some of their own traits. So when folk societies come in contact with urban societies, they inherit some of the traits of urban society, and thereby they lose some of their own characteristics. Is it clear? So these are the traits of societies proposed by Redfield. Now, another important classification of society, or definition of society, was given by Ibn Khaldun in his theory of history. So Ibn Khaldun was an Arab sociologist, philosopher, and historian, and he was one of the greatest social scientists of the Middle Ages. And his theory of history emphasizes the importance of social organization, power structures, and the cyclic nature of civilizations. And his study focused on the impact of sedentary culture, group feeling, and the decline of civilizations. So first he talked about sedentary society. So according to him, according to Ibn Khaldun, the pursuit of wealth and well-being in sedentary societies eventually weakens them, making them vulnerable to the invasion and overthrow by supposedly more nomadic, barbaric people. So Ibn Khaldun said that sedentary societies, or the pursuit of wealth and well-being in sedentary societies, would eventually weaken that kind of sedentary societies, and nomadic or barbaric kind of societies would invade this kind of sedentary societies, or overthrow this sedentary societies. And he suggested that nomadic tribes have the potential to overthrow settled civilizations and establish new dynasties. So he suggested that nomadic tribes or nomadic barbaric people have the potential to overthrow settled civilizations, or they had the potential to destroy settled civilization and establish new dynasties, challenging the notion that sedentary cultures are inherently superior. So, which means that there is a common notion that sedentary cultures, or sedentary cultures means settled civilizations, as we discussed earlier, settled or permanently settled civilizations or permanently settled societies. So there is a common notion that this permanently settled societies are superior or strong. But Ibn Khaldun suggested that nomadic societies or nomadic tribes have the potential to overthrow these settled civilization, and they have the power or they have the potential to establish new dynasties. And he believed that savage nations have the greatest capacity for royal authority, and their strength allows them to fight other nations and extend their authority beyond their own borders. Is it clear? So that was Ibn Khaldun's concept of, or he was actually comparing sedentary societies with nomadic tribes. And he was of the opinion that nomadic tribes have the potential to overthrow settled civilizations and establish new dynasties. Now, to the next concept, the concept of state. So, the term state or the word state, it is commonly used as a synonym for nation or government or society or a country. And one of the prerequisites of state is its sovereign power or its supreme authority or power. Or in order to call a something as a state, it should have a sovereign power or a supreme authority. And Aristotle defined state as a union of families and villages having for its end a perfect and self-sufficing life. Self-sufficing life means happy and honorable life. So according to Aristotle, a state is a union of families and villages having a perfect and self-sufficing life. So another important definition of state is given by Marx. So Marx actually traces the development of state to the division of labor in society. And his views on state are closely related to his classification of society. And according to Marx, the basis of state is force. And he said that the state exercises power and authority for promoting the interest of the dominant class and suppressing weaker classes. So according to him, the basic characteristics or the basis of a state is force. And he said that the state exercises power and authority over weaker classes, or they using this power and authority, the state would suppress weaker classes and the state would promote the interest of the dominant classes. And he viewed state as a man-made institution. He never viewed state as a natural institution, but he viewed state as a man-made institution. And he described or defined state as state is but a committee for managing the common affairs of the bourgeoisie. This is an important definition. You have to note it down. He defines state as state is but a committee for managing the common affairs of the bourgeoisie. So according to Marx, state exercise power and authority for promoting the interest of the dominant class or the bourgeoisie, and thereby the state would suppress the weaker classes. Now, another important definition was given by Weber on state. So in his book, Politics as a Vocation, Weber defines state. So in this book, he defined that state is a human community or a special kind of institution that claims the monopoly of legitimate use of physical force within a given territory. So according to him, according to Weber, what he found important as a state is that state has the monopoly of legitimate use of physical force within a given territory. And he explained his views on state in his book, Politics as a Vocation. And he saw the state as the most powerful institution in modern society because it had the legitimate monopoly of force over a given territory. Then he explained 4 defining characteristics of modern state. Weber explained 4 defining characteristics of modern state. The first one is it has a legal and administrative order. which is subject to change by legislation only. So the legal and administrative order in a state is only subject to change by legislation. Nobody else can change the legal and administrative order in a state. It is only subject to change by legislation. Second characteristic is it has an administration. The state works in accordance with legislation. It doesn't work in accordance with the favor, or it doesn't work in accordance with any favor of a particular person or individual persons, but the state works in accordance with legislation or laws, and it has an administration. The third characteristic is the state has binding authority on all its members and over the acts carried out in its territory. The state has authority over all its members and the actions of those members in its territory. And the fourth feature is state can use force if that is legally prescribed and permitted. So these are the four defining characteristics of modern state given by Weber. Next concept is social structure. So simply we can explain social structure as the relationships or interactions between groups of different people in a society. And the analysis of social structure. In order to analyze social structure, the analysis of social structure is done mainly in three ways. First one is macro analysis. So in macro analysis, this macro analysis looks at broad categories and systems like large populations or large groups like a whole country or a large economic systems. So macro analysis looks at broad categories and systems. Next point of analysis is meso-analysis. So meso-analysis studies communities or certain groups in a society. So it focuses on studies of communities or certain groups in a society. Next one is microanalysis. In microanalysis, we observe patterns and collects data from smaller groups like families or individuals. So these are the three types of analysis of social structure: macroanalysis, mesoanalysis, and microanalysis. So these are the examples of social structure: nations, economies, racial groups, religion, legal systems, political parties. All these can be called as example for social structure because each of this represents relationship or interaction between groups of different people, isn't it? If we take a nation or economy or racial group or anything, all these institutions are constituted by the relationship of groups of people. So these all are examples of social structures. Now, Randall Collins on social structure. What was his view on social structure? So Randall Collins was an American sociologist, and he's a leading contemporary social theorist. And his areas of expertise include macro historical sociology of political and economic change, micro sociology, including face-to-face interaction, sociology of intellectuals and social conflict, along with others. He is a leading non-Marxist conflict theorist in the United States. Now, his views, or Randall Collins views theory as essential to understanding the world. So according to him, theory is very much important in understanding the world. And he examined the social world, emphasizing the role and interaction of larger social structures. So his analysis of the social world were focused on the study of role and interaction of larger social structures. And he studied how the society is created and destroyed through emotional behaviors of human beings. How society is created and destroyed through emotional behaviors of human beings. And he also explained stratification, social stratification on a daily life basis. Is it clear? He explained stratification. Randall Collins explained stratification on a daily life basis. And according to him, the social structures and actors as inseparable. Both are related. According to Randall Collins, social structures and actors are inseparable. And actors keep on creating and recreating social organizations. So according to him, actors and social structures are not different entities, but he viewed both of them, or that both of these both of those as a single thing, or he viewed it as inseparable. He viewed structures and actors as inseparable, and he said that actors keep on creating and recreating social organizations. Then his study can be called as microsociology of stratification. As we said earlier, he explains stratification on a daily life basis. So we can call his method as microsociology of stratification. And he called Marxian theories as monocausal explanation of a multi-causal world. Multi means more than one. So he said that in this multi-causal world, Marxian theories are only giving a monocausal explanation, only giving a single explanation for the happenings in this multi-causal world. So he called Marxian theories as monocausal explanation of a multi-causal world. And he said that social stratification can be studied in everyday life of people. That's why his study is known as microsociology of stratification. He said that the social stratification can be studied in everyday life of people. And these are his words. He said that social structures may be translated empirically into patterns of repetitive micro interactions. He said, defined it as social structures may be translated empirically into patterns of repetitive micro interaction. Is it clear? So this was Randall Collins's view on social structures. Next is Morris Ginsburg. Morris Ginsburg's definition of social structure. So before that, he also defines society. So Ginsburg defines society as a society is a collection of individuals united by certain relations or mode of behavior united, which mark them off from others who do not enter into these relations or who differ from them in behavior. And then he defines social structure as social structure is concerned with the principal forms of social organization, that is, types of groups, associations, and institutions, and the complex of those which constitute societies. So, according to Ginsburg, social structure is concerned with the principal forms of social organization. So, what does he mean by principal forms of social organization? It means, like, for example, types of groups, types of associations, and institutions. So, according to him, social structure is concerned with the principal forms of social organizations. So, we are studying this particular definitions because these definitions have been asked before in the exams, like who defined this social structure as this. So there was questions like this. That's why we are studying this. So try to remember this, some of these definitions also. There are chances for asking these questions again. So try to remember at least some of these major definitions. Okay. Then, according to Raymond Firth, Raymond Firth defines social structure as, or according to him, social structure is concerned with the ordered relations of parts to a whole, with the arrangement in which the elements of social life are linked together. Then Radcliffe Brown defined social structure as an arrangement of persons in institutionally controlled and defined relationships, such as the relationship of king and subject or that of husband and wife. So according to him, social structure is like an arrangement of persons in institutionally controlled and defined relationships. Now, according to Talcott Parsons, it is the particular arrangement of the interrelated institutions, agencies, and social patterns, as well as the statuses and roles which each person assumes in the group. So, according to Parsons, social structure is the arrangement of interrelated institutions, agencies, social patterns, status of people, roles of people, etc. So, according to him, a social structure is an arrangement of all these things. Now, another important theory related to this social structure is Anthony Giddens's structuration theory. So, according to his theory of structuration, social systems are both the result of individual actions and the context that shapes those actions. So, according to Anthony Giddens, social systems emerge as a result of, or social systems form as a result of individual actions and the context or the reason in which those actions happened, or the context that shapes those actions. And in this theory, Giddens emphasized on the duality of structure, which means that, according to him, social structures exist in the practices of individuals. He said that social structures exist in the practices of individuals. And in this theory, he introduced the concept of duality of structure. That is important. He introduced the concept of duality of structure in order to highlight the interplay, or to highlight the relationship between agency and structure. So he used the concept duality of structure to highlight the relationship between agency and structure. And he said that individuals both reproduce and transform social systems through their actions. So he said that through social, or through the actions of individuals, that social systems take form, or individuals reproduce social systems through their actions and they transform social systems through their actions. And his theory emphasizes ongoing dynamic relationship between individuals and the social systems in which they participate. Is it clear? So, an important part of this theory is that the duality of structure, and he introduced this concept to highlight the interplay between agency and structure. That is Anthony Giddens' structuration theory. Next is John Galton's concept of structural violence. So, what is structural violence? It refers to the societal structures and systems that perpetuate harm and suffering by disadvantaging certain group or individuals. So, the structural violence means disadvantaging or harming or creating suffering to certain group or individuals through social structures and systems. So, the structural violence is completely different from direct violence. In direct violence, there is physical harm, but in structural violence, there is no physical harm is there. But structural violence is more subtle and it is embedded in social, political, and economic institutions. So, and the structural violence is often manifested through unequal access to resources, opportunities, and basic human needs. Is it clear? When certain social structures or social systems fail to provide or create a disadvantage to certain group of people or individuals, that kind of harm or that kind of suffering they creating is known as structural violence. It mainly happens through unequal access to resources, opportunities, and basic human needs. And these kind of situations, like if someone have no access to resources and someone have inequality in their opportunities, or someone suffers to meet their basic human needs, such kind of situations create conditions which contribute to widespread suffering, and that kind of situations is known as structural violence. So it simply means violence or suffering caused by social structures, mainly because of the inequality or unequal access to those structures by certain group or individuals. And Galtung emphasized the roles of social structures like economic inequalities, discrimination, institutionalized injustices in maintaining and perpetuating violence. So he said that the social structures are able to maintain and perpetuate violence through various ways, like through economic inequalities, through creating discrimination or institutionalized injustices. These all can create or maintain violence in society. So basically, or simply, structural violence means when some individuals or group may experience harm not necessarily due to direct actions of others, but mainly because of systemic inequalities and power imbalances within society. That is known as structural violence. When some individuals experience harm due to systemic inequalities and power imbalances within society, it is known as structural violence. Now, to our next concept, which is social change. So, what is social change? It is the alteration of mechanisms within the social structure, or a change happening to the mechanisms in a social structure. This it can be called as a social change. So, social change include changes in cultural symbols, changes in rules of behavior, social organizations or value systems, etc. And the social change can evolve from different sources. It can happen due to different reasons, like contact with other societies. So the social change happens due to contact with other societies is known as diffusion. Like then there is another reason, like changes in the ecosystem or technological change, population growth, or other demographic variables. All these factors can cause social change. So social change can evolve from or evolve due to various reasons. And it is also spurred by ideological, economic, and political movements. Social change can also happen due to ideological, economic, and political movements. Now, next concept is socialization. What is socialization? It is the process of learning about and adopting the social norms and values of society. It is how a person learn about and adopt to the social norms and values of a society. And there are different types of socialization. First one is primary socialization. So it is the process by which an individual learns the basic values, norms, and behaviors that are expected of them by their society. So primary socialization means the process in which an individual learn the basic values, norms, and behaviors of the society which they live in. And this primary socialization usually happens during childhood. And it is mainly achieved through the family and sometimes through the education system. For example, we all learn the basics of our norms and cultures or from our family itself, isn't it? We we learned how to call elder peoples, or how to you know refer to elder peoples using certain names, or like to call father, mother, or brother, sister, or like that kind of basic salutations, or basic values or norms and behavior patterns. We all learned those basics from our family itself. So that kind of processes of learning those basics of our values and norms and cultures are known as primary socialization. And it takes place during childhood and mainly achieved through family. Next type is secondary socialization, and it takes place when a child learns the values, beliefs, and attitudes of their culture through those outside of the family. And the secondary socialization mainly happens through schools, mainly through our friends and teachers and etc. Mainly it happens at the schools. So it takes place when we learn the values, beliefs, and attitudes of their culture or our culture through those outside of the family. It is secondary socialization. Next type is anticipatory socialization. It is the process of preparing for future roles and statuses by learning and adopting new behaviors, norms, skills, and values. So it is a process of preparing for future roles. For example, we can say if I want to become a lawyer in the future, I will start learning new behaviors of a lawyer, like I start learning new skills which I need to become a lawyer, like that. This kind of learning is known as, or this process of preparing for future roles is known as anticipatory socialization. Or another example which we can take from our own societies is that some parents, asking their daughters to start preparing for their role as a daughter-in-law in other family, which we can find in almost every family in our society. Like daughters are always asked to learn how to behave in another family when they go to their in-laws house. They were asked to learn cooking. They were asked to learn about particular behaviors and skills. in order to behave in a particular way when they go to their in-laws houses. So that kind of process of preparing for future roles are known as anticipatory socialization. Next type is resocialization. So it is the process of unlearning old norms, roles, values, and behavioral patterns and learning new patterns. So it is the process of unlearning old patterns and learning new patterns. For example, we can say this kind of resocialization may happen in prisons. Like in prisons, people may unlearn their old behavioral patterns and they may learn new patterns. So that is a process of resocialization. Is it clear? So that kind of process is known as resocialization, unlearning old patterns and learning new patterns. Next type of socialization is our organizational socialization. It is a learning and adjustment process that enables an individual to assume an organizational role that fits both organizational and individual needs. So it is a learning and adjustment process which make an individual efficient or make an individual ready for an organizational role, and it which fits both organizational and individual needs. And an example for this, we can say a person getting ready for assuming a new position in their job. Like when a person gets promoted in his job, they need to learn new skills or new values or new patterns in order to fit in their new roles. Both it is needed for their organizational and individual needs. So that kind of learning and adjustment process is known as organizational socialization. Next is gender socialization. So this is the process of teaching members of a society how to behave according to gender expectations or gender roles. So it is a very common socialization process in our society. The like girls are always told to how to behave like a girl, how to sit, how to dress like a girl, and boys are always told to you are a boy, you should behave like that, you should dress like this, you should talk like this. So that kind of a process or that process of teaching people to behave according to their gender or according to their gender expectations is known as gender socialization. I hope it is clear. So that is all for today. Now let's look at some of the questions from all the topics we studied today. So the first question is, which type of society is known as dawn of civilization? The answer is agricultural society. Agricultural society is known as dawn of civilization. Next question is, birth or origin of sociology happened at which stage of society? It happened at industrial society. Next question, in which book did Robert Redfield explains his concept of folk-urban continuum? And the answer is The Folk Culture of Yucatan, because he took the example for his study, or he took 4 societies from this Yucatan. That's why his book is called The Folk Culture of Yucatan. Then, what type of societies are known as post-industrial societies? Societies based on the production of information and services, not based on the production of goods, but societies based on the production of information and services are known as post-industrial societies. Then, what is the concept introduced by Anthony Giddens to highlight the interplay between agency and structure? The answer is duality of structure. The last question, the process of unlearning old norms, roles, values, and behavioral patterns and learning new patterns. It is known as resocialization. Is it clear? So that's it for today. I hope it was a useful section for you. And we will continue this unit in the next class also. And there will be 3 more classes from this unit. So, if you want to join our courses, since these classes are just like an introduction to our actual course, which is in its sociology course. So if you are interested to join Professor Academy's sociology course, you can join now. The classes will be starting soon in our other platform, not in YouTube live sessions, but in other platform. So if you are interested, you can join now. The admissions are now open. You can contact these numbers for taking admission, and also if you have any doubts or inquiry regarding the admission process, you can contact these numbers. So our actual course will be much more than this discussion of the syllabus. In addition to the discussion of syllabus, we will be doing so many previous year questions. There will be MCQ examinations. There will be weekly test paper series and all. So it is like a whole package. And by the end of the whole course, you will be able to crack UGC net by your next attempt itself. So if you are interested, you can join now, and try to join as soon as possible so that you won't be missing any classes. And in addition to sociology, we are also providing classes for all these subjects also. So if you are interested, you can contact this number. So thank you for joining today. See you in the next class. In next class, we will be continuing this unit. So don't forget to join the class. See you tomorrow. Good night.